This is Walter on his 6th day of board and train. As with all the other days, we are warming up in an open space on a long leash here so that he can get warmed up, acclimated, and a little bit more engaged. When he starts out, he tends to be a little bit more stressy, a little less focused, and so I want to give him the time he needs to kind of get his thinking cap on a little bit. Today you'll notice I have a harness on him. I was able to put it on. He was a little stressy about putting it on, so for his session following this in the evening, I actually opted to just use the collar again. He is a little sensitive to handling and touch, and since we don't quite know each other very well, I am opting for as stress-free as possible. I do prefer to use a harness on the long line so that if he hits the end at all, there's no pressure on his neck. But I also have to make sure that I'm keeping him as comfortable as possible. I like to use fence lines like that for opportunities to sniff. If you have a dog like him that is very visual, you can see he's very much scanning his environment. Using perimeters, fence lines, and bushes, stuff like that, will encourage your dog to sniff, especially places where dogs might have marked. Here he keeps trying to look around, kind of scanning for people who might be about. So when he comes over here and sniffs, I absolutely encourage it. I want to make sure he is using more of his nose rather than his eyes. So once he was sniffing over there just across the way, I did see some people coming, and you can see them. There's a person in a pink shirt kind of off to the right there. They were coming, so we ended up crossing the parking lot, and I set up my camera here so that I could show how well he's been observing people at a distance. I do scatter some food here, but because he's on Prozac, his appetite has definitely gone down. His owner said that, he's definitely had a decrease in appetite. So I offer it in case he wants it, if he wants to sniff around, if he wants to eat it, but we're at a distance where he's not over threshold, he can observe, and if he needs to make any more space, we can actually, off to the right off screen, we can make a little more distance if needed. But I was pretty happy that he was able to just sit here and observe. If he were to start to fixate, if his breathing changed, if his posture changed, if he started pulling forward, I might opt to give him a break or make more distance, but I felt pretty confident he was able to look away. His body language was pretty loose. He was a little alert, but definitely not too bad. So at this point, I feel pretty confident in being able to follow them just a little bit. So they are right there across the road. My video skills are really not great. So
great decision, buddy.
They're right across the road, so he looks like he's doing pretty well, so we're just going to kind of walk parallel next to them across the parking lot just so he can practice the skills he'll need for passing people in the neighborhood, but at a distance that he's confident. So you can see he's sniffing. He's definitely aware of them. He's a little bit more vigilant than I would like to see. But I just asked him for a U-turn, and he came very enthusiastically back, and then he played with his stick. So I called it a win there.
You gotta do.
It was really good. And then, so once the people passed, we left the parking lot there. And just up ahead on the left, there is a guy that's kind of coming in and out of his car.
Walter, this way. Good boy.
We asked for this way,
Nice job.
and Walter did awesome. And so since the guy was coming in and out of his car, I don't know if he was cleaning it or what, I went up to the perimeter here and hopefully to encourage him to sniff. And you can see he's not like super interested in sniffing, but he is doing a little bit of scenting there along the perimeter, which is helpful, helps to give him something else to focus on. So we walk forward here, and there is another guy, not in this gray car, but the one right behind it, I believe, who is just coming out of his car, and Walter opts to smell this really interesting spot. So obviously I encourage that. He sniffed the spot for a long time, so once we passed that, we went into the school area here, and he is at a distance where there are actually quite a few people out. You can kind of see them in screen. There's a guy doing lawn care, there is a person getting groceries, and then the guy that was at his car is still there. So he's doing some good observing and then disengages when I ask.
Good boy.
Really nice. And you can see he, again, a little hyper vigilant, but not over threshold, and he's at a distance that he can handle, so it's all going really well. And it's going so well, we try for some neighborhood walking here. I'm still on the long line, so I can use more line if I need to, but I am using about half of the length here so that we can start to work towards kind of a regular leash walking length for the neighborhood. The more he hits the end of the line, the more he will want to pull, the more he will amp up if he sees a person. So the long line helps to kind of limit the amount that he's hitting the line. There he does hit the line a little bit, and so I just kind of stopped for a moment, and he actually came back and loosened the lead on his own. So then we went forward. It was a really good choice on his part. Again, encouraging any kind of sniffing. This fence line here is really great for that. Usually, if you have a dog that's vigilant, going up against fence lines like that can be very helpful to help them sniff. He's kind of off and on, but we're definitely having a lot more success with him sniffing and not just completely scanning the neighborhood. Here, up ahead, there is a dog walker, and he is doing so well that we decided to finish out his walk by walking just across the street from them. So we're going to come a little closer than he has been and see how he does. He sees the person, he sees the dog, and I honestly think he could have probably continued walking parallel, but I ended up going a little left towards the school just to play it safe. But as we're walking here, you'll see he notices to the right that the lady's on the other side of the road, and he does a really great job of keeping his cool. He doesn't react, but he definitely gets a little bit more vigilant here, so I make the decision to go left towards the school again. He wanted to sniff, but I was like, we're gonna go over here for a sec. And he did awesome. And my video skills suck, but he is watching the person with the dog walk there, doing great.
Yeah.
He checks back with me voluntarily, and this is where I end his walk because it was just so good. He made a lot of good choices here.
Come on, buddy. This way. Let's go.
This is just a short clip from his evening walk. I wanted to share it because he did so well. We did about half of his walk in the neighborhood, and up ahead you'll see there is a family with a bunch of kids and bikes and scooters that is directly across the street here, and he does a great job passing.